Hello everyone, welcome to my online prep. Today we'll start with chapter 13, that is employee development. In this chapter we'll be learning about training, its basic objectives, training and development, its needs, the concept and differences of training, development and learning, training needs and what are the methods for identification of the training needs, the role and impact of training, changing face of banking in India, and what is the future of bank education in the Indian market. So let us start with the first topic of today's session. It is clear from the previous chapters that any organization is made up of its people, people who are more commonly here known as the human resources. So they are working towards certain goals, and the success of the organization will depend upon the quality of the human resources, quality, skills, knowledge, and behavior towards the organizational goals. So this will encompass the performance or how well they perform towards their goals. Performance is the product of two aspects. First is ability to perform, and second is the willingness of the employees. Ability are the skills and knowledge they hold. Willingness is something internal. It comes from the behavior and attitude, whether they are actually willing to perform the task. So, another aspect on which the level of performance will depend is the quality of leadership. If the leader succeeds in providing a quality leadership by providing required motivation to the individual employees, this will have demonstrating effort on the workforce. The leader should be able to motivate the people towards working hard, towards giving 100%. Herein, training enhances or sharpens the skills and knowledge of the people. Some people are born with skills, others need training and development. We also need to enhance our skills. This can be done by providing training. If we want to seek change in the behaviors and attitudes, if we want to increase the willingness to perform well, all this can be done by training. Training is the cornerstone for sound management. Now, banking is a service organization. Also, due to the constant change in its profile, due to the introduction of technology amongst the competitive atmosphere, training management has since emerged as an important and crucial function for all the other types of human resource management. Employee development also includes upskilling the employees to take up new roles. It prepares them to face the challenges of future. The methods of employee development that are undertaken include training, coaching, mentoring, job rotation, on the job training that we studied about in the previous chapter, simulation, as well as self study. In this chapter we'll be covering training as the method of employee upskilling. Now, what are the basic objectives of training? If we talk about any training or training in banking in particular, so it is to provide instruction and experience to the new employees so that they can reach the required level of performance in their jobs quickly and economically. For the existing staff, training will help them develop new capabilities so that they can improve their performance in the present jobs. They can also learn how to use the new technology and prepare them to take increased responsibilities in the future. So the training endeavor of any organization aims at improving or remove the performance deficiencies among the employees. For example, in case of new technologies, there can be a gap in their skills. Second, to increase the intellectual wealth of the organization. Better employees will lead to better wealth for the organization or human wealth. Third is to contribute to employee stability, which in turn enhances sustainability and better corporate image. Employee stability will be there if they already know about more skills, if they're ready to take up new responsibilities and higher job roles. To improve the morale and overall personality of the employees, if they have more skills, then their esteem will rise. And finally, to increase the job satisfaction and recognition. This is among the most important goals of training. So these are the fundamental objectives of training from the overall development point of view. But in terms of business growth, employee morale, productivity and profitability, there are certain broad objectives of training in any organization. These are First, enhancing the employee competencies. It means improving their knowledge, the level of skills that they have, also how they can improve their abilities so the leaders can interact with the employees. They can provide them with a trainer to get more insights as to provide better competencies. Second is easy induction to the new entrants. Training also makes the new entrants effective by imparting the skill, knowledge, the right mindset that is important to work in the organization. Then third, helps in employee growth opportunities. Training also helps the employees to enhance their career growth opportunities by having more skills for the future needs. Fourth is enhancing the customer delight. Training also makes the employees aware of how they are rendering the customer satisfaction. Acceptance of change is another factor because organizations need to introduce new methods, techniques, and devices. This is possible that when training is provided, there would be better acceptance of change, resistance would be less. Sixth is nurturing the talent pipeline and band of committed and loyal workforce. Training makes the people knowledgeable, skilled, and competent. Thus, people know about the rules, regulations. Seventh, reduction of absenteeism, employee turnover rate, and increase of productivity. Training programs are designed such that the overall objective is that the people they can know more about their jobs, they can perform better in the given time period, burden reduces. Eighth is developing proactive capabilities, also improves knowledge, skill, and competency so that they can identify the issues and also they can solve those issues in the future. Turning the people constantly dynamic so that they can realize the necessity of dynamic activities for their survival, growth, and sustenance in the future. And finally, uninterrupted industrial or business activity. The employees are motivated, prepared to perform the job of high responsibility through the development of skills and knowledge. So these are the basic objectives of training in any organization. We have learned what is training and its objectives in bank. We also need to understand the principles that are governing the training function in banks. Principles are training should be motivating in the sense that should serve as an encouraging tool so that the employees can take more responsibility of learning and enhancing their skills, knowledge, and attitudes. Training should increase the motivation of the employees. Second, training should be purposeful and need based. It should provide certain objective, cover gaps or deficiency. Training should be based on the tested principles of learning that have proven to improve the attitudes, knowledge, and skills in the past. Training should be conducted in the actual job environment to the maximum possible extent so that they can get practical learning. It will be more effective. Training should emerge as an effective tool for judging the suitability of promotions, transfers. Employees who are readily taking up new skills, they are easily learning about the new technology, for example, are better suited. Training should drive the bank towards transforming it as a learning organization. And finally, it should be viewed as an investment in the HR with the promise of better returns in future. So these are the principles. When followed, they will lead to successful training in the organization. Next topic is the need of training and development. We have established that training and development are vital components of human resource development. Now, its need we can say develops because of two factors. First is change and second is development. Change can include almost anything and everything in the organization. There's in fact a direct relationship between the two, between change and training. It is one of the biggest factors that contribute to the need of training and development. Change leads to the need of training and development, and training and development in turn leads to the individual and organizational change, and the cycle goes on and on. That is, if there is a reason for change in the organization. For example, new technology is being introduced. So there's a need for training to be provided to the employees so that they can know how to use the new technology. And this in turn, if we are learning how to use the new technology, it would lead to change in our behavior. So there's a direct relationship between the two. More specifically, it is the technology here that is driving the need, changing the way how businesses function, compete, and deliver. So, change and the need for training and development go hand in hand. Second factor is development. It is again one of the strong reasons for training and development becoming all the more important. Now, money is not the sole motivator at work. We had studied about the theories of motivation, about Maslow's theory, the two-factor theory, and in this, money acted as the basic motivator or the basic need. But now, in the 21st century, or for the younger generation, more or real empowerment here works or means more development or upskilling of the people. So people who work with the organizations, they seek more than just employment out of their work. They look at holistic development of self. Higher levels of needs, spirituality and self-awareness are gaining momentum world over. People seek happiness at jobs. They seek a concept that is known as work-life balance. All of these factors are gaining more importance. So now the critical question remains the implications and the contribution of how training and development can lead to better organizational performance. For this, we need to understand in depth the concepts and differences of training, development, and learning. First, let us understand the concepts of training and development. Training refers to the process of imparting specific skills. Training is where the skills, knowledge, and attitudes are imparted to a particular job. Training is provided to an individual so that they can perform a job, they can perform a task, and people are undergoing training. They have some formal education, some skill upgradation is there in training. The purpose here is to teach the theoretical concepts and develop some sense of reasoning and judgment. The HR specialists, they work on providing more skills. On the other hand, development means those learning opportunities that are designed to help employees to grow. It is a more holistic concept. Development is a broader concept as compared to training. Development is not primarily skill oriented. It provides general knowledge and attitudes that would be helpful to the employers in the higher positions, and efforts towards development more depend on the personal drive and ambition. So there's a growth in the attitudes, behaviors, and knowledge of individuals. There are during the development period, it is not necessary that skills develop. More importantly, the overall development of the individual takes place. So, training and development both are important. Together, they will help remove the performance deficiencies in employees, offer greater stability in the organization, flexibility and capacity for growth, reduces accidents, wastage, damages to machinery, reduces dissatisfaction, and above all, training is an investment in the right type of employee. We need to understand what is the need of training, who all can improve, they can perform better when training is employed. So training and development are important and both of them are different. What is the difference between the two? Here in this table, we have mentioned the basic points of difference. Training is organization related, skill focused, whereas development is creating the learning abilities. Training has some formal education and development is not education dependent. It is not necessary that new education is gained. Training needs depend upon lack or deficiency. Training would be provided to the employees only if the managers or the higher level managers they feel that there is some deficiency or there is a gap. Development depends on personal drive and ambition. The employee themselves want to grow. Trainings are generally need based and development is voluntary. Training is a narrower concept, development is a broader. It subsumes training. Training may not include development, but development includes training wherever necessary. Now, training is aimed at improving the job related efficiency and performance, whereas development aims at overall personal effectiveness, including the job efficiencies. So, a development plan it helps the employees become self aware, they are motivated towards higher responsibilities and higher roles, they're sensitive to the environment. Training will help the individual level to improve the individual performance, fix the deficiencies, improve skills. and knowledge shape attitude. Training and development together, they will help the overall organization. Another concept is learning. We have seen that training and development is the organizational process where the skills and the development or growth of the employees are affected. On the other hand, learning is a broader connotation and it has built-in training. That is, learning will have built-in training or it will involve training. In simple terms, learning can be defined as human process by which skills, knowledge, attitudes, and habits are acquired and utilized to modify the behaviors. Hence, training will be useful in the context of organization, where learning is useful for personal growth. It is more related to the development of the individual in terms of acquiring the new skills and knowledge that are required to perform her or his jobs. Moreover, the effect of learning is relatively permanent. Now, training is a short-term effect. This is why these two are different. Learning, if we learn something, it is going to stay with us for a longer duration. In the present day context, looking to the advantages of learning, the organizations aim to ensure that their employees have long term impact of their training both in the context of organization as well as personal front. So learning has a relatively permanent effect in contrast to training. In this context, the organizations are reterming their training and development function as more of a learning and development. That is, in order to give more impetus to their individual, also to reflect their objective of making training a meaningful turn, so as to reform the employees for their mutual benefits. They also do that to increase the performance of organizations. So, through learning and development, both organizational goals plus the personal development of the employees. Both of these are benefited because of learning. So organizations are becoming more and more a learning organization. Next is training need. What are the methods through which we can identify the training need? We have studied that training is need based or it is purpose based. So it can be defined as the difference between the standard performance and the actual performance of the concerned employee. There exist certain benchmarks in any task or job. If the individual employee is not performing as per the benchmark that has been set, then it is said that training will be required by them. An individual obviously needs training when her or his performance fall short of the standards, they fall behind. That is when there is performance deficiency. So, inadequacy in performance may be due to lack of skills or knowledge. Performance deficiency can be absence of skills and it can be remedied by the training that is provided to them. So, assessment of training needs must also focus on the anticipated skills of an employee. If they are working at a particular task, in the future they would need certain other skills. These anticipated needs will also lead to the need of training. Now, in today's times, technology changes fast and new technology demands the new skills. Equally, if new products commensurate with the market demands, they need new skills and knowledge to produce that product, to market them. Hence, it is necessary that the employee be trained to acquire the new skills. This will help them to progress in their own career path. Also essential for them to handle more challenging tasks. Assessment of training need occurs at the group level also. Here we are discussing the individual as well as the group level. Any change in the organization's strategy requires training that is provided to all the employees. For example, when the organization decides to introduce a new line of product, then the sales personnel, production workers, marketing team all have to be trained to produce, sell, and service the new product. The individual training needs is made from the, now how we can identify the training needs, that can be done from performance appraisals, interviews, questionnaires, work samples, rating skills. These are the basic instruments that are used by the managers, by the employers to see if there are any existing gap in the performance of the employees. And the group level training needs are identified from the organizational goals and objectives, the personal or skill inventories, organizational climate indices, efficiency parameters, and so on. So Here, what is done is the employees at the individual and the group level are assessed, and if any gaps or deficiencies are found, then we can provide them training. Thus, identification of the training needs is actually identification of the deficiency in their performance. So we have seen what is training and how the need for training can be identified. Now, what is the importance, the role and impact of training, or why organizations will undertake the training programs? There's a vast range of skills and competencies that can be developed in people so that they can be useful for some sort or prioritizing, and training focuses on the areas that will yield the best benefit and in turn on the investment. Training is an investment. We invest today so that we can get better results in the future. Herein, prioritization means the essential skills that are required today. We need to identify which skills or which training is more important today, and then we can postpone the ones that are less prioritized. The highest training priorities are obviously that have immediate necessary and they are immediately implemented. Many organizations they face challenge of developing greater confidence, initiative, solutions finding, and problem solving capabilities. Now, every organization they need staff at all the levels that are self-sufficient, resourceful, creative, and autonomous. So, focus here is on developing the person along with the skills, not just physical development of skills, but also their personal development. For this, providing learning experience would be like creating their own personal interest, development, and fulfillment, and participative workshops. They here can work the best. They work well in affecting the attitudinal change in individuals. Emotional intelligence principles and methodologies also work if we want to develop the people's belief, maturity, and attitude. If we want to change them or we want to provide positive motivation towards the goal of the organization. One concept that is used here is the Johari window. We have studied about this in the motivation chapter. It is based, programs are useful. So many people work at simply, they go through the motions, they act in the conforming state because they feel insecure, they lack confidence. So here the responsibility is to encourage organizations, they strive to encourage their people. Generally, benefits from the employee training and development they can be numerous when proper training is provided, but there are certain things that have to be kept in mind when imparting training to the employees. We need to ensure to have sufficient knowledge about the employee's need and want, what is the requirement or why training has to be provided, appropriate steps taken to build the relations before training. We need to have a plan put in place, build trust and feeling of being safe to talk about one's problem. There should be a mutual trust. The employees should trust their managers and the employers. They should share their problems. There should be an atmosphere where free exchange of ideas is there. Emphasis on how to bring about change rather than on knowledge inputs. Sufficient time has to be provided so that training can be done to ensure ideal trainee trainer ratio and to leverage the participants' work experience to ensure better reachability of training among the participants. So, when the organization or the HR department is planning the training, they have to keep these things in mind. Next, let us see how the face of banking in India is changing today. Herein, the Indian financial sector is undergoing rapid changes, starting from the structural reforms that took place in the 1990s till today. In the advent of technology, there are various changes that have occurred. First is seen in the alignment of the financial services with the global standards. This is done to strengthen the India's banking system in an increasingly competitive environment. As a part of the economic reforms, financial sector reforms were initiated since the 1991-92. So, financial sector reforms that aimed at reforming the banking structure, in which allowed the private and foreign sector banks to operate in India. India has adopted the international prudential norms and practices with regard to the capital adequacy, income recognition, provisioning requirements, supervision, and these norms have been progressively tightened, not just the international practices, but also RBI has been taking various steps in the past few decades. The reduction in SLR and CRR has been seen. Interest rates in various segments have been deregulated. Risk management has been strengthened and measures have been put in place. In the area of supervision, the Basel Core has been using for, as well as site on-site monitoring of the risk profile of banks is done by RBI. One major change is the abolition of the BSRB. With that, banks are now free to recruit staff on their own according to their needs and requirements. The bank, for their specialized branches, they can recruit staff. The 11th wage accord that concluded in November 2020 has witnessed introduction of the performance linked incentive as well. So now, apart from the basic salary that was uniform across the bank, employees are also given the performance linked incentive. So their employment is also performance based today. The RBI Standing Committee on International Financial Standards and Codes, under the chairmanship of Dr. Y.V. Reddy. This is important to remember. It had identified the global standards and codes as a part of the efforts to take sound financial architecture aligned with global practices. So the Indian banks are trying to reach to the levels of global standards in providing their services. Another important change is in regard to the banking operations. This is in response to the changing environment that the banks today are pursuing strategies. Aim is to strengthen their ability to perform across various functions, not just the basic banking services, also retail customers, raising capital for the mid-market segment, tax related services, selling mutual funds, insurance that come under the other financial services are provided by the banks today. Ability to perform such functions increasingly means offering a range of complementary or substitute products and services. Herein, basically, three things are involved in the organizational architecture: centralization of certain functions like payment and settlement mechanisms, credit processing of even small businesses, marketing, and the performance evaluation that is based on compensation systems. So the compensation systems of the employees and managers is becoming more and more performance related. So the focus, the public sector banks, they have embraced the operations that are changing, that were earlier implemented easily by the private sector banks. Public sector banks are facing a few little problem and they're slipping back. They are falling back as compared to the private sector counterparts. Here, other changes that have emerged or are still emerging in the banking segments in India. First, related to the financial sector reforms. The second generation of the financial sector reforms in India focuses on implementing the tough and challenging measures, unlike the earlier soft options. The first generation or the financial sector reforms in the 90s. After that, these new reforms they aim at more tough and challenging measures to control basically all the operations or the risk. Second are the government initiatives. Several initiatives have been taken by the government for restructuring the PSUs, fiscal consolidation, downsizing the government organizations. Disinvestment has occurred, mergers of different public sector banks. Impact of globalization is also there. Globalization has intensified the competition. Now they are forced to adopt the sophisticated technology. The public sector banks that were earlier not technologically high, or they were not using the technology, they have to use the transaction and the risk cost. They have to improve the customer access. For that, they need to adopt the technology. Changes in banking have also occurred. This is because of the adoption of technology, that the changes in business and marketing strategies, product innovation, pricing, and delivery systems, even in the public sector banks is seen today. The digital, or we can say internet, is being used as a delivery channel. Human resources and skills, there's a necessity to develop new skills and the HR systems that are compatible with the evolving needs of banks, both customers as well as the employees. The performance metrics that were traditionally used are also changing today. Performance is not only determined by customer service but also factors like the efficiency of payment systems, the credit delivery channels, pricing mechanism, non-performing asset, fraud control, and herein information technology plays a very important role. Money laundering concerns are also on the rise. The global markets are increasingly concerned about the use of the financial system for money laundering. These are the illegal proceeds that are converted into the legitimate funds. So anti-money laundering norms have been strengthened, they have been provided more impetus and importance. Then government initiatives against the money laundering, many initiatives have been taken, like the anti-money laundering bill in the parliament, so as to counter and check this illegal activity that can undermine the financial system as well as the economy. RBI has also taken various roles. The role has been changing. They have established guidelines on the anti-money laundering measures within the existing legal framework that are similar to the other countries, so as to provide a standard to this practice. The enactment of the Securitization Act is also important. It allows the banks to take over the assets of loan defaulters without the court intervention, reflecting the government's commitment so as to reduce the NPAs, securitization, bad banks, the ARCs have been established. Another thing is the customer centric approach. Concepts like the customer relationship management and customer call centers, they highlight the growing focus on the customer needs more and more, because change is there in the demand patterns of the customers. They are gaining more and better acceptance in the competitive environment. So now services like ATMs, more developed mobile ATMs have been there, credit and debit card, anywhere, anytime banking, etc. Then single window concept has been developed to provide real-time transaction processing through multiple channels. Single window, all the services can be performed under this single window. It gives raise to the certain requirements within the bank, like security and safety of funds and confidentiality. Then centralized core banking solutions. It involves the complex processes and significant capital investment that is leading to the need of the business process re-engineering. Now, for this, the HR policies and procedures also have to be changed and impacted. The prerequisite of the banks, not only for its effectiveness but also its survival, requires the adoption of the core banking solutions. Challenges in a declining interest rate environment. Now, the market driven scenario. Herein, necessities shift from class banking to mass banking. But also, it is important to maintain quality lending processes. So, herein, pursuing the profitable ventures in retail banking, consumer loans, and housing finance. This is done to increase the business volumes. This is the changes that are occurring in the customer section. Moreover, the concept of profit is also changing. We are moving towards more profitability that requires efficiency of the operations. So the banks are focused on improving the profits and productivity to ensure the long-term viability. Marketing culture is developing. There's a need to cultivate an aggressive marketing culture with maintaining the ethical values, because there is huge competition in the Indian financial market today. So, in order to increase the productivity and profit, product delivery system has to be suited to the changing demands. Corporate governance, professionally qualified individuals from the various backgrounds, they are being inducted onto the bank boards so that they can ensure access to accurate and timely information. Now the traditional banks are changing into the modern ones, so this change is required. HR function of the banks are also changing towards a more people concept. Banking scenario is changing due to the government liberalization methods. Government has taken various initiatives, including demonetization, promoting digital transactions, implementing GST, consolidating public sector banks prior, then privatizing some of the PSBs. Then legislations have been taken to address the NPAs and labor laws. These are some of the government initiatives that have been taken. These will help change or more incentivize the banking process or the banking system in India. And finally, we have the long term benefits. Now, there are several challenges that are faced by these changes or initiatives, but still, the reforms are expected to benefit the masses in the long run. It will lead to the improved financial health and more competitive banking sector. So these are some of the changes that are occurring or they have emerged in the banking segments in India. For that, education and training is important so that the employees they can adjust to these structural changes that are occurring. So with this, because of these emerging changes, what is the future of Indian banking? Indian banks have identified the growth potential of the Gen Next, that is the younger generation, and they're already providing schemes, especially keeping in mind the requirements and the preferences of the younger generation. The banking sector can help in reaping the population dividend, that is, India has the younger generation, so providing the life cycle wise products that can provide products to the younger generation from the starting or the basic products to the ending. So herein, what RBI is trying to do or what the banks are trying to do is to create a relationship that would start with the birth when the savings account is opened, then it will continue when the child grows, completes education, then loans are provided for any business or taking up a job, customized services are provided till their death or the last service that they have to obtain. Herein, banks also provide facilities like internet banking, that is most accepted mode for the younger generation, telebanking, etc. Younger generation is more tech savvy, so they believe in saving their time and energy by using technology. This is because of the second dose of banking licenses. That is, Reserve Bank of India has now accorded license to open certain new banks because the way of doing business is changing. So a second dose of bank licensing has started. At another level, with the success attained with the merger of the associate banks and the move for prioritizing few public sector banks, the various banks that were merged herein has brought the necessary amendments to the Banking Companies Act and corresponding amendments in the Banking Regulation Act as well. Now, the government of India is determined to reduce the public sector banks to 8 or 9. This was recommended by the Narasimham Committee. Basically, less banks will mean more efficiency, more or better supervision. All these metamorphoses will have tremendous impact on the HR or the IR policies, their programs and strategies as well. So this is the future of Indian banking. It is going to change even further and we need to adjust to that. So the future of Indian bank is going to be very different. Accordingly, the future of bank education in India is also going to be very different from the traditional ways. Herein, the 21st century would be a knowledge century. More importance would be given to the knowledge-based economy that is focusing on technology, IT, introduction of electronic banking services, basic electronic banking services through the self-servicing zone. So these are the changes that will require new education platforms. So, with such an array of new products and more on the way based on the customer demand, India's banking industry must strengthen itself significantly so that they can support the modern and vibrant economy. If they still depend on the previous or traditional skills and knowledge, then they would not be able to supply or cater to the changing demands of the new generation. Now, focusing on enriching the human capital. This is going to help the banking sector become more competitive and efficient. This sector needs to fundamentally strengthen the institutional skill levels, especially in sales and marketing, service operations, risk management, and the overhaul of the organizational performance ethics. So these are some of the areas wherein new training and education is required if the banking sector wants to continue in the competitive scenario. Strengthening the human capital here, the human capital is going to be the biggest challenge for the banking industry. The older employees will either fade away or they have to get equipped with some new skills, while the younger employees and the newer and the new public sector units would come up with different set of capabilities that have to be challenged the right way. Old private sector banks also they need to strengthen their skills. So in the field of knowledge economy, reorientation in is required and it is required at two levels. First is the field of banking management. Continuous improvement is there, which mainly is related to the expanding of information technologies and also expansion of the knowledge system. So education has to be imparted more for IT and the knowledge systems. This will above all support the financial system management, then internal quality management, interactive payment system, and management information system. These together are going to strengthen a whole series of well-designed training programs. So proper training programs are required that are conducted by experts in the respective fields in sales, marketing, service operations because of the new products, new skills and technologies. So the face of bank education in India is also going to change dramatically in the future. So the expansion of banking services for the millions of new customers, there would be tremendous growth in the volume of such services. With this will come the issues and challenges in the learning environment of the banks. The policy makers, they have to take into consideration these challenges, such as what are the appropriate systems and structure to generate information for the future generation banks. We should understand the gen next banking. We should understand it before implementing the plans. So structure and systems have to be understood. Will the existing players be able to meet the required volume, number, density and diversity of these services? If not, then whether the new players such as the NBFCs, corporates, they are going to perform these activities. Then what should be the delivery structure for the entire financial system for all the products under one roof? Should the model be based on universal banking, subsidiary or collaborative route? What is going to suit best the new generation of customers? What should be the delivery model at the grassroots level, whether it should be direct or indirect approach given the dimensions of the business involved, a multi-channel delivery, it could be the most appropriate model. What are the policy changes necessary to meet these challenges and to facilitate growth and transition? And finally, the HR issues. It will assume prominence because banks need to assess the skill requirement so that such services can be provided, workforce can be created, training and nurturing, also to make them accountable for rendering the right type of services. So these are some of the issues and challenges that are going to be faced in the learning environment in banks. So the players, regulators and policy makers all need to focus on these issues. Also, because of the new challenges and requirements, the role of training and education in the banking sector is also changing. This is due to the increasing competition coupled with technology absorption and a plethora of innovative products and services that are provided through the sophisticated delivery channels, that new skills and creative ways are required for providing training and development. This scenario calls for continuous harnessing of the skills and creative talents of the human resource that can be done from innovative training methods. The traditional chalk and talk methods are not going to work today. We need to replace them with the modern methods of teaching like PowerPoint presentation, e-learning, web-enabled learning. Also, the tools and techniques that measure experiential learning, analytical skills, initiative, and prudent decisions. One example can be on the job training that provides practical skills to the employees. So, the approach of training strategy should be three-tiered. It should impart the required knowledge, harness the skills, and imbibe positive attitudes among the workforce. All these three things are important. Along with skills and knowledge, a positive attitude is also important for that environment that is going to suit the requirements of the new generation employees. This has to be taken into consideration. Since constant learning, acquiring new knowledge, skills and abilities, these are emerging as the primary sources of competitive advantage. So now the responsibility of learning is gradually shifting from the trainers to the trainees. They should be willing to understand and gain the new knowledge. Hence, there is a felt need on the part of the banks to create proper atmosphere in which the workforce owns the responsibility of learning. They should be themselves willing to take up the training courses. They can own the responsibility and acquire the new traits on their own. In today's changing scenario, e-learning and knowledge transfer plays a huge role. E-learning is learning through the internet, The traditional ways of learning like classroom, they had various limitations of time, space, race and language, but now internet has provided solution to all these deficiencies because of the concept of distance education. So now employees, they can learn about the banking operations anytime and anywhere. They need not be present in the classroom. Another important thing is knowledge transfer. Herein there's vast population in India, the expanse of regions and diversity of language. Because of this, the new medium of learning, that is internet, holds immense promise. Banking is a vertical segment and timely adoption of technology is very important. So employee base from different streams of education and walks of life are here. It is imperative to enhance the awareness and transfer of technology, moreover, in an easy and efficient manner. If we look at the traditional ways of imparting education, so the role of staff training colleges was more in the past, and similar academic institutions, they had been vital. But now, because of the changing face of technology being used in the operations, it necessitates the need for different and more enlightened view of training. The need to transform into a learning organization is more apparent in today's dynamic environment. So the role of training and education in banks is also changing immensely. With this, we have come to the end of this lesson. Keep learning with us. Thank you.